Welcome to the Sober Living Stories podcast. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of sobriety. We shine a spotlight on individuals who have faced the challenges of alcoholism and addiction and are today living out their best lives sober. Each guest has experienced incredible transformation and are here to share their story with you. I'm Jessica Stepanovic, your host. Join me each week as guests from all walks of life share their stories to inspire and provide hope to those who need it most. Welcome to another episode of the Sober Living Stories podcast. Today we have a special guest, Sara. With 10 years of sobriety and a master's degree in healthcare administration, Sara serves as the vice president of professional relations at Ripple Ranch Recovery Center in Texas. Listen in today to hear Sara's story on how she uses her own sobriety and higher education to be an advocate for others. Welcome, Sara.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Jessica.
Well, welcome. I'm so glad you're here today. I know that you are immersed in recovery every day for your job, but I'd love to ask you about your personal story, where it started, when that turning point in your life where you knew you needed to get help, and then what it looks like today.
Yeah, thank you so much. My journey to recovery is different from everyone's. I think that everybody has like a unique journey, and that's why recovery is so special and individualized for everyone. So I actually went to treatment 7 times. I went to outpatient. I've tried everything. And this last time that I went to treatment, in 2013, was definitely a unique experience. I called my mom and she was very much like, you know what to do, and, helped me by just like telling me, really holding boundaries, because she was an Al-Anon and she was like, I'll do just enough to where you have to help yourself. I think that was really a good thing for me because I didn't know what to do. I'd done it before and I was more willing that way, too. And so I went to treatment and I did 30 days. And actually I had to wait for treatment, which was actually very good for me because I went to a state funded treatment program and they didn't have a bed right away. So I had to wait 10 days and I went to, it was 12, 17, 13. That is my sobriety date. And that was a hard 10 days to wait for treatment. I had to go to treatment on 12/26. And that was through the Christmas holiday. And my family was very, they had a lot of good boundaries. That is also my birthday. 12/21 is my birthday. And so my family, I have a daughter, that I had a CPS case with, and like a long time ago, even before that sobriety date. And so they made me do a UA and they had all these stipulations. So they did a really good job because we'd done this scenario so many other times. And so, and I was on deferred adjudicated probation. And so there's just a lot of differences that time for me, which is also this time, this current 10 years, which is amazing. A lot of just differences. But so I actually went to treatment, stayed sober that 10 days waiting. So I feel like I was really willing and ready, which does make a difference when people, go to treatment. And I so waited for the bed, got into treatment, did a full 30 days. I had a counselor right when I got out. We did a lot of trauma work because I've experienced some trauma in my life, which I think a lot of us have. I always say, like, if you that you go to treatment, like you either don't have any trauma or you get into an addiction, like you've had trauma, or you get out of addiction and you have trauma, like you either go into it with it or you come out with it. So you can't really like get around that a lot. I feel like that's something that I've noticed with people with addiction and mental health. So I really think that piece with a treatment center is important, which we have at Ripple Ranch, which is why it's very dear to me. So I went to treatment for 30 days. I got out. I did a full intensive outpatient program. I went to sober living at Oxford, did 90 and 90. Like I did the whole deal. And I think that was something that was different for me. And then like right when I got out, I also kind of had a plan, but the counselor that I had was really important to me too. He really did a lot of motivational interviewing with me, which I didn't know that at the time. But now that I'm more into the work, I'm like, wow, he was doing that to me.
Right.
He was doing
What do you
motivational
mean by
interviewing.
what do you mean by motivational?
Like I asked questions. He would ask me like, "What do you want to do with your life?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know. I can't really do anything. I have this, I'm that." Like a lot of like hard. I was very hard on myself and critical. And I'd be like, "Well, I can't do anything." And he'd be like, "Well, why not?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm on probation and this and that," and make excuses for myself. And he was like, "Well, why can't you do that? And why can't well, you can do this or you can do that?" And he motivated me to be better and would talk, like do a lot of talk therapy with me. And I immediately was like, oh, yeah, why can't I do that? And oh, let's do that. And he like, I don't want to say it's like trickery, but I was like, oh, okay. Right. And I started having good positive thinking patterns. And I actually, when I got out of treatment, immediately was like started looking at going back to school. And I like started, I had some debt that I needed to pay back to my school, but me and my mom worked it out so that I could pay. And it was only like $300 or $500, but I was like very determined to go back to school. And I almost immediately, a month after, got back into school and I was like, okay, I think I might be a counselor. Mm-hmm. So I did get my undergrad as a chemical dependency counselor. And I actually didn't stop going to school. I got my undergrad, got my bachelor's, and got my master's, and just kind of followed the path that was laid out before me, and like talked to a lot of mentors about what I might want to do. And that's how I got my master's in healthcare. I thought I wanted to be a counselor, but that path kind of went a different direction through my work. And like I ended up in business development. So I was like, okay, I'm probably not going to be a counselor. Like that's not where this path and journey is taking me. But I have that in the event I might want to do it, but it's just not where my God has led me, you know?
Right. You had mentioned that you went to treatment 7 times and that this particular time was unique. Mm-hmm. What was the unique factor this time? Was it the boundaries that your mom had put in place, or was it something that happened within the treatment center?
So I think it definitely was the fact that I was listening more and open-minded to the ideas, but also I had a different like crowd that I was around. I had all of the outside noise and vibrations were no longer around me. I didn't have like any friends left in that negative world that I was in that I could go back to. I also in my past had like a abusive boyfriend. Wasn't an option anymore. Also, I was in a different place in my life. Like I was more willing and ready. I don't like, I think every time I went to treatment, I had some willingness. It just never left.
Mm-hmm. This time.
I don't know if that makes sense because like every time I went to treatment, I was wanting it and I was ready, but like it stayed that 30 days. And I think that yes, like the counselors and like that desire was just still there always. Cause like that, like I AMA'd like multiple times. I mean, I AMA'd sometimes like one time the day I got there. And I think like the addiction was stronger than my willingness.
Sure. Yeah. And I think, oh, that's great. And when it's your time, it's your time. And that's so true. And, you know, it's so true what you say, because I believe I had willingness too. So why didn't I stay the first time or the second time? And it doesn't mean that people can't make it on the first go, because they absolutely can. And that's,
and I did one time before make it, like for like 3 years. And I did one at that time, but I think I had some extensive trauma that I needed to work through.
Sure.
And sometimes people can just get through to you better than other people. We've learned that.
And you have to learn
I get better through people than other people.
The big key, I think, too, is not just getting sober, but staying sober. So so what would you say to listeners who are struggling right now with, I've gotten sober for a year or I've gotten sober for 6 months, but how are they going to stay that way? Like, what did you do to stay this time? The work.
Yeah. I say this a lot to people. I mean, I've created and I've always tried to like create a foundation for myself and like connections with people that like I can trust and I find like some loyalty with, that is really important to me because I think like what we lose in addiction is that trust and honesty and like people we can depend on. And so I think for me, like that's my personal experience, of course, but I do think that like we kind of lose that. And then also like we we need to we need to stay plugged in and like somehow get through that shame and guilt because that's what pulls us back in.
Yeah, yeah. So I like that you just said shame and guilt because I know for myself, I was just I wanted to get well, but I didn't know what was wrong with me, right? And so
Mhm.
I I had tried everything, endocrinologist, psychologist,
Mm,
psychiatrist, and just heading in all the wrong directions. And because I was such a failure, I perceived myself as such a failure as getting myself well that
mhm.
I think that kept me out there and kept me being destructive longer,
Yeah.
but so this would be a great point to speak a little bit about, it's not that you're a bad person, you're
Mm-mm.
a sick person. So speaking to the disease of alcoholism, like
Mm.
what have you learned about the disease of alcoholism? Because that's really the crux of this. And
Yeah, well, I said this on another podcast I was on. I don't think anyone wants to be an addict or an alcoholic. Like we didn't grow up and
absolutely.
we're like, okay, that's what I want. And I think that like we're just numbing to cover up like pain or something that's happened and like we really have to dig deep to find out what that is. And like it's hard. Like I'm still kind of like, wow, why did that? What is that? Like what? And I'm like slowly revealing that every day. And sometimes I find it's something else. Like there's multiple things. And like it sometimes it just starts with one drink, and then you had two and then three and then it spirals. And so I think that the science of it all can be very difficult to understand. You know what I mean? And so we
Mhm.
really just have to be like patient with ourselves and um, understanding and just like we say, just take it one day at a time and not rush into it and yeah, just kind of be understanding and patient. Yeah, that's like the best way I can describe it.
Yeah. Yeah. So after you went to treatment and then you got out, I think they say it's like a 50% increase in staying sober if you
Mm.
immediately get out of detox or a treatment facility and you seek help that day. And it sounds to me like you found a really good counselor fairly quickly that helped you navigate those first couple months that are so difficult, right? So, could you talk a little bit about that and how important that is or was for you? And
Yeah, absolutely. I think aftercare is so important for individuals when they get out of treatment. I think continuum of care is important. I actually like we say in like our community here in Austin, like it takes a village. And that means like everybody working together to help the families and the clients. And I believe that like that starts with like the inpatient, if you're in inpatient, like for the case managers and counselors to help you to continue your care. Like we don't just you're not done and then you're just finished. We need to help plug you into aftercare resources. And I think that means like an intensive outpatient program, partial hospitalization, at least a counselor at most, whatever that may be. And everybody is very unique, like their own individual stories, and what's going on with them. And so we really have to find what's a good fit for them. Every right now, like in the world, I just feel like it's very individualized. It's not a one size fits all. And so we really have to look at each person on an individual basis and like what they may need, like personally, financially, in their area, work situation, like what may be best for them. And you have to stay plugged in to a community and you have to have some sort of support group. And so like at Ripple, we have an alumni group that we're trying to grow and keep them plugged in with. And that's really what we're focused on right now with their aftercare, along with outpatient and counseling.
Yeah. Yeah. I think something interesting you said was you spoke about your mom and how she had boundaries and she had been Al-Anon or may still be
My mom
Al-Anon.
and my dad have great boundaries. Yeah.
Your mom and dad. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of parents that may be listening or people in recovery who are listening have parents that have either had to do the tough love, which is so difficult. I couldn't imagine, but you know, it usually warrants the best results. And then, or the other is just being loving and enabling and giving too much where there's nothing happening, you know, there's no change coming. And so that's a difficult position for parents to be in and probably quite heart-wrenching and scary also, you know. But it seems to me like when your parents put down those boundaries, you responded really well. So can you speak to that a little bit?
I can. So speaking from my personal story, it took my family a long time to get boundaries. And it also, my mom was in Al-Anon a long time. And then my father had custody of my daughter. So I think that he had like a good foundation, like he was able to put up those boundaries a little easier and faster. And then, you know, moms and dads, like everyone has like a different, like they're a different authority figure in like kids' lives too. So like they may have different boundaries already set in place with their kids. But I think that, you know, everybody's going to be different with their children, and they're going to, like need to do whatever they feel is best in their heart and whatever they can live with at the end of the day. And, Al-Anon is a great place to start. I also think like, for people in recovery that are working with people, like Coda is a great place for us. I do that a lot. Like I read the app, the language of love. I think that's what it's called.
Language of letting go.
Language of letting go. Thank you. It also is for love. No, but I think that is for loved ones, I should say. I think that is really good. Like when you work with people in business development or you work with people in like in admissions on a daily basis, like that app is like so good to start your day with. It really
I'm glad you referenced that. I had probably almost 20 years ago, I read parts of that every morning. And so it was so just, I remember it to this day. And just recently I said, I have to get that again. I have to get that again. So now I will. Yeah. And just to get the app so that it's right there. Yeah. That's a great reference for people. That's Language of Letting Go by Melody.
Yeah.
Melody
It's so good. Yeah. I love that one. I think it's good too if you're like in a relationship with someone that, you know, is also in recovery. It's good just because you're both in recovery. Yeah, I love that. I love that app.
Podcast, we talk so much about taking like a harmful habit and removing it and replacing it with something better, you know, that just made our lives like happen again. And so what are some of the things that you do today that you were not doing 10 years ago that have enhanced your life?
I definitely didn't read the Bible 10 years ago, and I do that every morning. I pause when I speak. I probably didn't do that last year. Or the year before. Yeah, I give a second thought. I mean, there's so many things I do. I do fun things. I go on walks. I ride bikes. I have a family. Like I didn't have a relationship with my daughter. I have a relationship with my daughter now. She's in college. I pay my mortgage. Like there's simple things in life. I have my own bank account. I mean, that's the thing about a gratitude list that I write today. There's like simple things in life that like people do that I didn't do. I know how to pay a bill. I have a college degree. Like there's just things that I never thought I'd have that I have. Right before we got on, I was like putting my dogs away because I never even had a dog.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like I had a cat, but with my mom, I know how to like talk to a friend and be a friend. Yeah. You know, or at least I hope. I hope they'd say that too. But yeah, it's like the simple things in life that I took for granted that I have now.
Yeah. It's kind of like, you know, when you're in active alcoholism or addiction, there's like this haze around you where you're not really
Absolutely.
interacting and being a part of your life as you should. Like the responsibilities are gone. Like,
Hmm.
and I can remember sitting on a beach in Cape May, New Jersey, and I was sober. And it was the first year I was sober. And I remember sitting there and I looked up and the sky was so blue. And I was like, wow, does it always look like that? And the clouds were
Hmm.
so white, and I could feel
Oh
the
my
sand
gosh.
and I
Yeah.
saw the dunes and I was like, wow, this is what everybody has seen, but I have missed, and
I
now I
love
get to see
that.
it. It was really, yeah, I can
I
remember that.
totally relate to that. Like in the summer in Texas, when everyone's like, "Oh my God, it's so hot," because I don't do cold. I actually said that on my last podcast. I I sit outside and I put on the music in the morning and just drink a cup of coffee. And I'm like,
Yeah.
this is the life. I love it.
Yeah, it's just so meaningful. I guess because
Hmm.
it was almost not there. And so there's such a gratitude and
Hmm.
just such deep meaning because it almost wasn't.
Hmm. We
So,
didn't do those things. We were busy.
yeah.
I mean, for me, I was busy just trying to find money to get my next fixed.
Hmm. Yeah, and so a lot of times we talk about how when people are in drinking or they're using drugs or they're immersed in a bad habit that they can't get away from, that is all there is. Like everything else is happening around them, but the only thing
Yeah.
that they could focus on is that, and they talk about it being such a selfish, self-centered
Mm.
part of the disease, because you just can't get past it to get to those you love or
Yeah.
events or back into your life or
Mm.
talents. So it's really incredible that, you went to 7 treatment centers, but you're sitting here today working in one with a master's degree,
It
and I think that's a
is.
huge
Don't make me
testament to
cry,
anyone.
Jessica. No.
Well,
Or do.
if people
No,
are
I
listening,
know it
and they
is. It
think,
is.
oh, it's too
And
late, I can't do that.
yeah, and
It's
if
just
I can do it, anyone can do it. It is no joke. I'm serious.
sure.
I was bottom, bottom with barrel for real.
Mhm, mhm. You talked about miracles in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and I can relate to that. I talk about how I never looked for them because I thought they were never meant for me.
Mm.
And when I got sober, I realized that that was not true and that they were meant for me.
Yeah.
Um, so, what have you seen? You talk about your spirituality has grown as
Mm-hmm.
a result of this new way of life. So, what have you seen that, is there anything big that happened to you that was
Yeah.
evidence that made your faith grow that you could share?
Yes. So, 18 years ago in October of 2000 and wait, October of 2005, I actually was in a drive-by shooting and I was shot in the head and another person with me died. And so I should actually not be here, but God saved me in that shooting. And I believe that I was meant for more. And like, although that I stayed sober a couple years after that, um, I believe that I was meant for more and that I'm doing what I'm on my way to do whatever that is. And I'm listening to
Mhm.
his voice and believing in the things that he's speaking to me.
Wow,
And
you're fulfilling his purpose for your life.
I am. And
Wow.
I mean, early on, like that's why I was speaking about trauma and I had some
Sure, that's
mishaps on my
traumatic.
way to get to my journey. But,
Wow.
and I had a CPS case, like I said, and sometimes things don't always work out the way that you think they're going to work out. But I really just believe that you have to continue to work on
Yeah.
yourself and the
You're
connection with people and really just work through those things to get to
so
where you're
wow,
supposed
that is a
Miracle.
huge miracle. I mean,
Yeah,
you were saved from that.
I know.
You were
I
literally
agree. I didn't know
shot.
that then, and I had some, you know, uh, I felt like a victim for a while and survivor's remorse and things like
Sure.
that. And I didn't even recognize what those things meant until I spoke to the right people. But I just continued to push through. And I hate to use the
What did the
word push,
recovery
but
look like for an injury like that?
I actually was only in the hospital for 10 days and I was
Wow.
up walking around and I didn't know I had a bullet in my head. And then
Wow.
when I started to bleed like through my nose, I realized that there was probably something wrong when we were on the way to the hospital. And so the bullet actually was lodged in my sagittal sinus where your blood flows. And so they decided to leave it in. My dad made that decision, which was a wise decision. And it stayed there for a couple of years after, and it worked its way out like a foreign object does, and a place it's not supposed to be. And it fell out a couple of years later, and I don't have a bullet in my head anymore. I just have a little hole.
Wow.
Yes, that's what I mean by
Wow.
miracles. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that is just one miracle of many miracles in my life.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, I know. I know. I know. It's
I was not expecting you to say that.
everyone says that. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
even expect it when I'm saying it. And I only recently started sharing that. It took a long time
Well,
for
what a
me to
gift you,
open up.
yeah. Yeah, I would imagine. But
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that you did. That takes a lot of courage to talk about something that big. But what
Thank
a
you.
gift you are then, like what a gift you are
Thanks.
to other people just from being here, saying that, and then working in the field that you're working in with a story like that, like a testimony like that. It's incredible. I'm so glad you're still here,
Me too.
How has your relationship with your daughter changed?
She is so supportive. She loves that I'm in recovery. She like blasts it. She hearts it. She tells me how like proud of me that she is. She's amazing.
When did you start working at the Ripple Ranch Recovery Center?
I actually started there in December of 2017. December's like a big month for me. My
Yeah.
birthday is yeah, I started December of 2017. So I've been there 6 years.
So how many clients do they have there? Is it something
Uh-huh.
where people can stay or?
Yeah, we have 35 total patients that we could have at one time. We're on 25 acres and it's an inpatient treatment center. We do detox, substance abuse residential, and mental health residential. And we're an in-network provider. So we take all insurances, except right now we don't take Medicaid and Medicare. Just like I've seen so many people have success and they haven't been back. They just stay in our alumni program. But then again, like relapse is a part of my story. So it is a part of other people's stories. And we're there to catch them when they fall and help them get through that as well.
Being in the business that you're in, I know there's different drugs and things that come in and out. There was the
Yeah.
opioid epidemic, and before that it was like
Meth.
meth, and then
Yeah.
now everybody's smoking, and like so there's just all
Hmm.
these waves of like what's going on, and so I don't know. Do you think
Absolutely.
one is more harmful than another, or do they all kind of play the same? When in excess, anything is terrible and it's not good.
Yes, that's a great question. I mean, I think in general, like drugs are bad, right? I mean, like just
Mhm.
say that. But I think fentanyl is extremely harmful because you can do barely any and you could die. And like one pill kills is like a huge campaign right now. And I absolutely agree with that. I think too, like fentanyl can be laced in anything and no one know. And that's the danger of fentanyl. I think,
Yeah.
but I also, I mean, fentanyl is just terrible. Like young kids, like young adolescent kids are getting a pill from a friend and it's laced and they're dying and they didn't even know it. And that's not okay.
Yeah. So what is that campaign? I've heard of it, but could you talk
Um,
about that for us?
yeah, one pill kills. So I live in Hayes County, so it's big here and it's on all like billboards and stuff. And I know some families that have been like impacted by that with deaths and just like addiction. And so it's
Mhm.
really something I care about. And also, I'm a part of the Austin Tap Board here, and like we're going to have a big campaign at our symposium that we're doing in May.
Okay.
So, but one pill kills is simply saying that like you cannot just take one pill. Like
Mhm.
if you take one pill, you could die.
You could
And
die.
it's absolutely true. And
Mhm.
that's what the mothers are trying to say, and the families, even the dads, but really mothers are leading that campaign. Like a lot of kids will play like that bowl game where you put a pill in the bowl and then you just
Mhm.
put your hand in it and take it out and take the pill.
Uh-huh.
And that's not a game that we should be playing anymore.
Yeah, it's over.
It's like rolling a revolver,
Sure,
and
sure.
yeah. It's exactly
Wow,
what it is.
that's a really good analogy because wow, that's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah, those are hard but really necessary conversations that we need to have with our kids. And how young would you say to have that conversation as a healthcare administrator? How young would you
Teenager.
suggest? Teenager?
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone, that's what I'm going to do. I mean, I've
Mhm.
already had those conversations with my daughter, which is a benefit to, the things that she's already
Been
seen and been
exposed to.
exposed to it. Yeah. So, but I have a 4-year-old son as well, and we'll be talking about that when he hits teenager, maybe even 12.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's personal. I mean, I think every family can decide on their own, but that's what I would suggest being in this industry.
Here's a big myth or disillusion that I had that literally delayed my recovery. I
Mm.
can recall sitting on the back porch steps of my brother's house. This was when there was like phone books. And I knew somewhere inside of me, I knew that I needed help. I
Mhm.
opened it and I thought, you know what? Maybe I'll go to a treatment center. That's what I could
Mhm.
use. And I remember sitting there opening that book, but then I closed it and I said to myself, it's too expensive. Never mind.
Mm.
And and so I never went. And I didn't get help for years after that. Now, I didn't ask for help from anybody. I could have walked in that house and told my
Mhm.
family that I needed help, and they would have bent over backwards and sold homes to get me help. I mean, they just would have done that, but I didn't have the words to ask. And I
Mhm.
thought treatment is way too expensive. I'm never going to be able to go. So I just took it off the table. Is that true? Or where and
Mm.
how can people get help if they feel like they don't have the resource or the financial
Mhm.
stability to get to where you're offering help?
That is a great question. So, treatment is a wide range. So, you don't have to have insurance to get into treatment. And then it's definitely a sliding scale depending upon where you're going. There are some that are less and there are some that are more. It really depends on like what type of amenities you're looking for. And even then, some of the ones with amenities offer like sliding scale or scholarships. It's kind of also a little bit about like who knows who and like who you're calling. So I would always suggest picking up the phone and start making the calls. I I just suggest always trying and picking up the phone
Reaching
or
out.
talking to a family. Yeah, reaching out. Exactly. But I understand that that's scary. But if they don't know you, then it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? Like there's no harm in trying if they don't. Everything is confidential. Like nobody nobody knows who you are if you're just giving your name, and if you
True.
run insurance or something, no one, your insurance doesn't actually know that you're running the insurance. We've gotten people who don't have insurance and like I still call them and we figure out where to put them or we get them in contact of who can help them. So I would just suggest not giving up and reaching out and trying to find placement if you need it. It's unbelievable how the community like helps like everyone and calls and tries to find resources and goes to great lengths, we'll say, like we say in the book and all, to find help for people. Like I was so ashamed I just didn't call anyone for a long
And then
time.
when I did finally make the call, it was like immediate.
Yeah.
Help was help was immediate. It was right
It
there the
sure
whole
is.
time.
That
So,
is a good piece in here to say. There are so
mm.
many people willing and ready to help you.
Well, could you share with us just where we can find you and if anyone wanted
Yeah,
to connect or reach out in particular with you?
yeah, absolutely. Ripple Ranch Recovery Center. Our phone number is 210-405-1645. If you wanted to check out our website, it's www.rippleranch.com. And we will be ready to help anyone. Like I said, it doesn't matter if you have insurance or not, we'll get you connected with resources.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you sharing your
Absolutely.
story and your hope. I appreciate you.
Thank you. It was
Yeah.
a blast.
Thank you for tuning into the Sober Living Stories podcast. If you have been inspired, consider subscribing and sharing with anyone who could use hope in their lives. Remember to stay tuned for more inspiring stories in the episodes to come. To view our featured author of the month or to become a guest yourself, visit www.jessicastepanovic.com.